Thanks, Lori. Good morning. I am Samantha Polakowski, the chair of the Certified Registered Nurse Anesthetist Advisory Committee, and I call this meeting to order. I, Samantha Polakowski, am present. Joseph Martin.
Joseph Martin, present.
Okay. Karen Karp.
Present.
Kathleen Theobald.
Present.
And Sandra Bordy is not present today. Quorum established. Okay. General instructions for items not on the agenda. Mark is our BRN moderator. Mark, would you please explain the format for today's teleconference meeting?
Perfect. Good morning. This is the BRN moderator. I will be moderating the meeting. To facilitate public comment, we will be utilizing the WebEx question and answer feature. We will also query the BRN Sacramento location. I understand there are a couple of public members there. When the committee reaches a point in the agenda at which public comment is appropriate, the question and answer feature will be turned on, and members of the public can indicate that they would like to make a comment by inserting the phrase, "I would like to make a comment," in the question box, which is typically in the lower right of your screen. I will then call on the individual and unmute their microphone. The individual will have 2 minutes to make their comment. I will not give a warning as your time approaches. I will mute your microphone and will announce that your time has exceeded the time allotted. I will then proceed to the next member of the public who has a comment. Please note that the question and answer feature is being used only as a means for members of the public to represent that they would like to make a verbal comment. When your turn comes, you will be promoted to unmute. If your question can be answered, the committee will respond accordingly. When making your comment, speak about anything you believe is important for the members to know. Remember, committee members cannot address any item not on the agenda. Items not on the agenda at that moment, items that you would like to add to a future meeting, or items that will be discussed later on the agenda will be discussed at their correct times during the meeting. I will provide a brief reminder of this approach at the start of each public comment item. Finally, when committee members or BRN staff are not speaking, I would like to remind them to mute their microphone. If I detect background noise during the meeting as a result of unmuted microphones, I will mute your microphone automatically.
Okay, thank you. Agenda item 3.0.
Samantha, before we move on,
Sorry.
I'm going to interrupt real quick before we move on, just do a couple housekeeping items. One, I'm going to introduce myself just so it's on record. I am Loretta Melby, or Lori. I'm the board's executive officer. I'm not part of quorum, but I am in attendance. And then in the attendees as well, you will see a name that says Harry Steletsky. And as soon as he can come on camera, I'm sure he will. Just to let everybody know that Reza is on a extended leave. He is celebrating his new role of being a dad. And so he has we have a person that is filling in for the time that he is off, and his name is Harry, and he is serving as our board's legal during that time. And so he will be available for legal questions throughout the committee meeting as needed. And will do the best that he can. So just wanted to kind of get that taken care of and announced and out of the way. And then now we can move on to agenda item 3. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Lori. Welcome, Harry. Agenda item 3.0, public comment for items not on the agenda. Mark, would you please open public comment for items not on today's agenda?
We will be opening for public comment now. Please refer to the screen share for members of the public to see how they should type in their request for comment. I've activated the question and answer feature. Members of the public can indicate that they would like to make a comment by typing into the question box, "I would like to make a comment." Please remember, you will have 2 minutes to make your comments. I will not give a reminder as your time approaches. I do not want to interrupt you nor cause you to lose your train of thought. I will mute your microphone and inform you that your time has expired, and we'll move on to the next member of the public. I'll pause for a moment for members of the public to type in, "I would like to make a comment." Joshua Kemper would like to make a comment. 1 second, please. Josh, oh, there you go. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Polakowski, Vice Chair Martin, and members of the CRNA Advisory Committee. I'm Joshua Kemper, a CRNA since 2015, and along with my partners at Sierra Nurse Anesthesia, we provide critically needed anesthesia care in Visalia and the South Valley, an area often described as a medical desert due to the shortage of healthcare professionals. The Advisory Committee's role in advising the BRN is vital, especially given the challenges we're facing in these underserved regions. The BRN's 2022-2025 strategic plan focuses on public health and safety by supporting a competent nursing workforce. CRNAs practicing independently are essential to meeting this goal, especially in areas like the South Valley. Recent California Department of Public Health actions, which have led to the unwarranted citation of Central Valley hospitals, threaten the foundations of patient care in our region and directly contradict the California Nurse Practice Act. CRNAs are trained to manage every aspect of anesthesia care independently in full compliance with state law. These actions have forced hospitals to cancel surgeries, impose unnecessary supervision requirements, and directly harmed patients in California by delaying or denying care. If the BRN does not take a stand on this, it risks worsening healthcare disparities in rural areas and across the state, and sets a harmful precedent statewide by allowing a rogue Department of Public Health surveyor to manipulate CRNA professional practice without engaging in the proper channels through the BRN and the legislative process. This isn't just about professional rights, it's a public safety issue. CRNAs are vital to ensuring all Californians have access to quality care. I'd like to urge the advisory committee to recommend the BRN take immediate action, clarifying in detail CRNA independence to the California Department of Public Health, CMS, and healthcare facilities, ensuring that all Californians receive the anesthesia care they need and deserve. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. I'm sorry. We have no comments on the WebEx, but I understand we have a comment, person who would like to comment inside of in our location. So if you want to go ahead and do that, we can do that.
Okay, can you hear us?
A little bit louder.
You can hear us.
Barely. You need to speak a little bit louder.
For troubleshooting.
There you go.
Okay, is that a little bit better?
Oh, much better.
Okay, good morning. My name is Emily Frank. I am a nurse anesthetist in Sacramento, California at UC Davis Medical Center. I'm also the president-elect of the California Association of Nurse Anesthesiology. And I'm here to basically ditto what Josh just mentioned. We are extremely concerned about the precedent that's being set by the California Department of Public Health throughout the Central Valley that is harming access to patient care, which is a top priority for us at CANA, and just nurse anesthetists in general. We're all about extending care to these rural communities, making sure that everyone's getting quality care by the very providers that have been doing this for over 100 years. We would like to urge the BRN to support our efforts to make sure that all of these agencies involved and all these hospital and facilities involved are aware of our independent practice and are supportive of it in a way that puts this to rest for good. It's been going on now for several months. We need this to end. We need to make sure that our patients are protected and that our practice is protected. And we ask for your help in this matter. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Daffy would like to make a comment. 1 second, please. Go ahead, Daffy.
Attorney, I challenge your proposed draft regulations because you abuse your authority by proposing regulations that are outside the scope of California law. You are encouraging your anesthesists.
Daphne, I need to interrupt. That is an agenda item, and this is a comment period for items that are not on the agenda. So we ask
I'm
that you
sorry.
wait. Thank you. No problem. We ask that you wait until we get to 7.0, and then you're
Okay.
welcome to participate
Thank
in
you.
public comments
Thank
specifically
you.
around that. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comment. Brian Tune would like to make a comment. 1 second, please. Brian, on your computer, there you go.
Morning, my name is Brian Toon. I'm the Executive Managing Partner of Central California Anesthesiology Solutions and also faculty at California State University, Fresno. I wanted to address the committee about the importance of the California Department of Public Health recent surveys and how they have impacted us directly here in Central California. As a practicing CRNA for over 20 years, I have never seen such a dramatic impact in our patients and in our practice. This was a tremendous threat, and it had rippling effects throughout the state. As an executive managing partner, I am charged with contracts and assuring that all of the hospitals have the appropriate anesthesia staff that they need to provide the anesthesia care that we contract for. Those were threatened almost immediately, which made access to our patients greatly compromised. Many surgeries were delayed while hospitals were investigating and looking at this situation, and there was mass confusion. So the ask is that the BRN address this with the California Department of Public Health and also with CMS, as it's a critical event that has taken place that continues to ripple throughout the state and I'm sure throughout the country. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Committee Chair Polakowski, there are no other requests for comments on the WebEx. We have no public requests for comments in BRN Sacramento. Would you like me to close this window?
Real quick, Chair, may I interject? So I have a few people that are reaching out on email and stuff that are trying to put questions in here and talk. One is dialed in, Miss Deborah Varela, and she cannot put her comment in. Another one is David Rodriguez, a CRNA. He's unable to put it on here. So is there a mechanism?
Do you know what their phone numbers are?
Yes, Deborah Varela's is
Just the first three letters, our first three numbers after the area code.
479.
Perfect.
Oh, the first three after the area code, 856.
Got it. Okay, so I'll do her first. And then if you're on a cell phone, it's either *6 or #6 to unmute. There you go. Go ahead. Call in user 479-856. You're unmuted. Go ahead and try on your phone *6 or #6. No, okay, I'm sorry. Who was the other person? Sorry, what was the other phone number?
The other phone number is, the first three are 658. Not sure they're on now.
Oh, hold on. Let me refresh here. Nope, I don't have a 658.
Okay.
They must have disconnected.
Okay.
All right.
What was the name? I wonder if they were able to sign in on computer. What was the first name?
First name David, last name Rodriguez.
No.
He's a CRNA that's been directly impacted in the Central Valley.
No, they do not. There's not one showing up. Did you want to try the 479 number again, Mark?
Let me try that one.
It will not unmute. So the 479 number is saying they're pressing all the things. And
Yeah, it's *6 or #6. They're unmuted right there. So this person, there you go.
There we go.
What, you can hear me?
We're hearing.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you, committee members, and thank you for making this exception for my technological mishap. I'm Deborah Varela. I've practiced as a CRNA for 33 years, and I currently work in the facilities that have been impacted by this recently. I'm very familiar with all the work that goes in by the CDPH to ensure patient safety. I've been fortunate in my 33 years to work as an independent CRNA in the military, the 67th Combat Support Hospital in Würzburg, Germany, during the first Gulf War. Again, independent, as military CRNAs were deployed to our forward surgical teams. I've practiced 25 years in rural critical access hospitals that otherwise would have extreme travel times and distances. In the Central Valley, as you know, these are some of our most vulnerable populations. And so interrupting their care has been difficult for them from a time standpoint and money. I've encountered through my practice multiple survey teams, and I understand, as I said, their role, but the survey that was conducted through the CDPH at this time was really anything but customary. The actions that resulted without providing a report speaking to patient safety under the care of CRNAs and under the threat of immediate jeopardy has forced CRNAs to work under restrictions that are not in line with our state statute in California, further impeding patient access to anesthesia care. So this burden has been on our patients with thousands of surgeries canceled. The act has had real safety implications for these patients, delaying surgical times. CRNAs are 100% trained and board certified to deliver independent anesthesia care, and our patients and surgeons rely on us. So we're asking that you please reach out and ask that the Board of Nursing support our practice as defined in state statute, allowing us to fulfill the needs of our patients and our facilities. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment. Thomas Butler would like to make a comment. 1 second, please.
Bachelor. I am a CRNA. I work for Cedars Sinai affiliated surgery centers in Beverly Hills. I've been a CRNA for 11 years. I just wanted to say, as a CRNA, I'm committed to high quality anesthesia care. I am concerned about the CDPH's surveys that occurred in the Central Valley. Given that the Central Valley, this was rural facilities, and I'm talking about, working in Los Angeles, I still think that this needs to be paid attention to, given that this trend of CDPH forcing hospitals into canceling thousands of surgeries is not one that we want to see continued. Patient access, of course, is central to the care that we deliver. So we need the BRN to better support CRNAs and our ability to practice independently without physician supervision, as we have for decades, and given that case law supports this. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Kristen Roman would like to make a comment. 1 second, please.
My name is Kristen Roman. I am a practicing CRNA at Cedars Sinai Hospital in Los Angeles. I'm also a board member of CANA. I've been heavily involved in the issues that's affecting Central California right now. It's obviously very upsetting for me. I'm a recent graduate, and I came into this field with an optimism that I would be able to provide patient care, that I would be able to practice to my full practice scope. And I find that we are under attack right now. I do feel strongly that this is politically motivated, and I'm seeking help from the BRN to be able to define our practice more definitely through regulations. I think that if we could come to some understanding as to the language that can define our practice, we can avoid politically driven attacks against our care. I think that's all that I have to say now, but I am in full support of all the comments that have been made up to this point. And I really do seek your help in overcoming this issue so that I can do what I went to school to do, which is practice to my full scope within the state of California. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. And just as this is an FYI for people who've called in, if you're calling from a cell phone, from a smartphone, The procedure to request for comment is 3 dots, advanced, Q&A, select panelists, and then enter question. And then you would just put comment, and then your phone number will populate, and I'll know that you are able to, or that you want to make a comment.
Mark, is that somewhere on our agenda or on our
No,
website?
we're having it added. We just
Awesome.
figured it out.
Thank
We
you.
just figured it out.
Appreciate it.
Um,
And do they, on the smartphone, do they have to have an app, the WebEx app, or is this allowed for strictly just calling in on possibly a non-smartphone?
Yeah, on a non-smartphone, if you're calling in on a landline, I don't think it's possible. That's what we're figuring out. But yes, if they called in on their smartphone, I believe that's the procedure. Jennifer just went through it. We wanted to figure out if we could figure out how it was done so that we could add it to the slide. Okay, I am sorry. Committee Chair Polakowski, there are no other public requests for comments on the WebEx. We have no public requests for comments in BRN Sacramento. Would you like me to close this window?
Thank you, Mark, and thank you everyone for your comments. Yes, please close the window.
Thank you. And then I'll just interject again really quick, just so everybody that's new to the committee understands, we're not ignoring you. This is the section of the agenda that if it's not on the agenda, you guys come in, request this, and the committee members can do one of two things. Listen attentively like they have today, make a motion to put it on a future agenda. And then that is not always guaranteed that it go on because there are legal processes that has to go through and be reviewed. We can't actually have a conversation about it because it's not agendized. It is in violation of Bagley Clean if we were to do that. One thing, just to let you guys know that BRN is actively working on this. We are working with legal, DCA legal, as well as CDPH. I personally have been involved in many meetings trying to get this answered and moved along. So you guys have been heard. Additionally, it was requested by a committee member to be added to today's agenda. We actually denied adding that to the agenda because it is a CDPH issue, unfortunately, and we have to wait for the official ruling coming out from CDPH before we can jump in. And so when it is not under our jurisdiction yet, we can't really opine on it. So once the official release is done with CDPH, then we can move forward on that. So just wanted to let the advisory committee members know why it wasn't added to today's agenda. And we are working to get that moving. It has been heard, I promise.
Thank you, Lori. Okay, agenda item 4.0, review and vote on whether to approve the previous meeting's minutes. Do any members have comments or corrections to the minutes? Okay, seeing none, I, Samantha Polakowski, move to approve the meeting minutes for January 18th, 2024. Do I have a second?
It's Kathleen. I second.
Thank you. Kathleen has seconded the motion. Okay, Mark, would you please open for public comment related to agenda item 4.1?
We'll be opening for public comment now. Please refer to the screen share for members of the public to see how they should type in their request for comment. I've activated the question and answer feature. Members of the public can indicate that they would like to make a comment by typing into the question box, "I would like to make a comment." Please remember you will have 2 minutes to make your comments. I will not give a reminder as your time approaches. I do not want to interrupt you nor cause you to lose your train of thought. I will mute your microphone and inform you that your time has expired, and we'll move on to the next member of the public. I'll pause for a moment for members of the public to type in, "I would like to make a comment." Malik King would like to make a comment. 1 second, please.
As he comes forward, I'd like to remind him that this must be a public comment specifically related to the meeting minutes that are agenda item 4.1. If it is not specifically related to the agenda minutes, we would ask that you wait for the specific agenda item. Thank you.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much. As it pertains to the agenda minutes, I just want to say thank you guys. I know a lot of people don't understand the things you guys have to go through with the staffing shortage and the nursing shortage, but you guys are doing a great job, and I just wanted to say thank you, sincerely.
Thank you for your comment. Committee Chair Polakowski, there are no public requests for comments on the WebEx. Do we have any public requests for comments in BRN Sacramento?
No, that we do not have any comments.
Thank you. Would you like me to close this window?
Yes, please. Thank you. Okay, I will call for a vote to approve the January 2024 meeting minutes. I, Samantha Polakowski, vote in favor. Joseph Martin,
Yes, in favor.
Karen Carp,
Yes, in favor.
Kathleen Theobald.
Yes, in favor.
Thank you. Motion passes. Okay, moving on. Agenda item 5.0, discussion and possible action regarding the meeting dates for 2025. Is there any discussion from the committee?
Meeting dates are located on page 14 of the packet. Those are all of the, and just to be very clear, those are proposed meeting dates for our board and committee. Our board and committee meets next week, and they will be officially voting on whether they adopt them or not. So with this being a typical calendar setup for our year, we did plug in where we felt that we could better serve the CNS and the CRNA committees. Typically, as today, even you guys are held on the same day. And so if you guys can review the dates, there should be 2 dates for you, January 16th, 2025, as well as August 14th, 2025. And review those dates to see whether or not that's something that you guys believe you can attend and that we would have a quorum. If you guys are traveling, don't believe you'll be able to attend because it's some important event in your life that's occurring around that time, please let us know. We do have some flexibility, but if you guys could accommodate January 16th and August 14th, then I would ask that you guys make a motion to accept and a second and go forward. But if those 2 dates don't work, then we can have a discussion about whether what possible dates would work best for you guys.
Okay, thank you, Lori. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I so move. Karen Carp. To accept.
Okay, Karen. Thank you, Karen. Karen makes a motion. Is there a second? I, Samantha Polakowski, second. Thank you, Joe. Joe has seconded the motion. Mark, would you please open for public comment related to agenda item 5.0?
We will be opening for public comment now. Please refer to the screen share for members of the public. They should type in their request for comment. I've activated the question and answer feature. Members of the public can indicate that they would like to make a comment by typing into the question box. I would like to make a comment. Please remember, you will have 2 minutes to make your comments. I will not give a reminder as your time approaches. I do not want to interrupt you nor cause you to lose your train of thought. I will mute your microphone and inform you that your time has expired, and we'll move on to the next member of the public. I'll pause for a moment for members of the public to type in, I would like to make a comment. Committee Chair Polakowski, there are no public requests for comments on the WebEx. We have no comments in BRN Sacramento. Would you like me to close this window?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Okay, I will call for a vote for the 2025 meeting dates of January 16th and August 14th. I, Samantha Polakowski, vote in favor. Joseph Martin,
Joseph Martin, vote in favor.
Karen Carr,
Karen Carp in favor.
Kathleen Theobald.
Kathleen Theobald in favor.
Thank you. Motion passes. Okay, agenda item 6.0, discussion and possible action. Report from the 3 CRNAAC subcommittees, public engagement and website, regulations, and regulations definitions. The first, I'll start with updates from the public engagement and website committee, which Kathleen and I are on. Kathleen, would you like to provide an update?
Yes, may I share my screen? Or should I just verbalize it?
If you're able
I'm
to
okay
share,
with you
go
sharing
ahead.
your screen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, hold on. Well, let me see. Share. Oh, there it is. Okay. Sorry, I may not be able to do that because I am technologically challenged. There, it says it's sharing, but I don't think it is it? No. Okay.
I can't see anything.
Kathleen, are
So
you
I
sharing
had-
your the
I had this-
website? Because I could pull that up and
No, it was a document that was created that Samantha and I worked on. That before we continued to move forward, we wanted to make sure that we had, we were on the right track. So basically, what I was going to share was a document that, outlines the project, and the project really is, creating a landing page, if you will, on the BRN website, dedicated to certified registered nurse anesthetists and their critical role in anesthesia, in an appealing and user-friendly layout for the general public. The keys for the public would be to optimize the page for mobile devices, make it easy to navigate to engage visitors effectively, and the visual elements, would have a consistent color scheme, legible fonts, infographics, testimonials, and regularly update it ongoing to keep the content relevant and engaging. The focus areas that we would like to see are a header and navigation, including a navigation menu with clear labels about like home, about CRNAs, scope of practice, patient safety, etc. A hero section featuring, high resolution images or videos related to CRNA services and practice, as well as overlaying the hero section with a concise tagline highlighting their commitment to patient care. And then like an introduction, what we would have a layout to introduce CRNAs, perhaps a split screen design with text on one side and an image of CRNAs in action on the other, perhaps a brief video testimonial from a CRNA discussing their role and passion for patient safety, in this section, we would also briefly explain what CRNAs are, emphasizing their advanced practice role in anesthesia, pain management, and related care across the lifespan. We would mention their licensure as independent practitioners and their collaboration with other healthcare professionals. We would then also have a scope of practice section where we have an infographic or flowchart illustrating the various areas where CRNAs provide anesthesia care, using icons and concise text to emphasize versatility and adaptability. And then describe also the comprehensive scope of CRNA practice for surgical, diagnostic, therapeutic procedures, et cetera, as well as specialties. And then perhaps another section on patient safety and satisfaction, showcasing CRNA's commitment to safety, including statistics on and highlighting rigorous training, perhaps featuring patient public testimonials, discuss CRNA's dedication to patient safety, and then moving on to quality and affordability, we could possibly use a side-by-side comparison to demonstrate how CRNAs contribute to quality outcomes while maintaining cost effectiveness. We could include a graph showing cost savings achieved through CRNA-led anesthesia services. Under here, we could also explain how CRNAs contribute to high quality care while maintaining cost effectiveness. And we can also mention the CRNA role in optimizing anesthesia services within healthcare budgets. Then we could also have another subsection called access and affordability. And this is where we could possibly even create a map of California, indicating areas with CRNA availability, providing information on CRNA-led clinics and underserved regions, address CRNA's role in ensuring access to anesthesia services, especially in the underserved areas, and discuss affordability and equitable distribution of anesthesia care. Another section we could have is education and accountability. Again, here we could develop an infographic detailing the educational path for CRNAs, highlight their adherence to ethical standards and accountability. We could have another section on collaboration and leadership, where in this section we could showcase CRNAs collaborating with surgeons, nurses, and other healthcare professionals. We could include quotes from hospital administrators praising CRNA's leadership. And then we could also acknowledge CRNAs as leaders, clinicians, researchers, educators, mentors, advocates, and administrators, and mention their collaboration with other healthcare professionals. Then we could also have a resource and links area where we could add buttons or call to action links to other relevant resources such as the AANA or CANA. And all of this, so this, I just literally read you the PDF I tried to share. But all of this really is to try to find a landing page for CRNAs on the BRNM website that is geared to simplicity, making sure that we have photos, possibly videos to tell the story, as opposed to a lot of text for the public, because people's attention span is so short. I'm sure I've already lost most of you now. But also trying to make sure that they can find what they want. Samantha did a deep dive into the BRN website for CRNAs, as did I, and we both struggled to locate effective information on CRNAs. You literally have to go to pull down menus to another menu to an off-link site. So really, like under the consumer link, you know, which is where our target is for the public, under the consumer link, you know, maybe just a advanced practice or CRNA button, you click on that and it comes to, you know, a page that's intended to educate the public. Again, we had discussed a lot of photos, possibly instructional videos. We actually had found some. I don't know if we can embed those or not. We'll have to do some more research. But to make it as user-friendly as possible to help spread what a CRNA is and what a CRNA can do and does throughout California.
Thank you. I can imagine it as you're describing it. So I apologize. If you have a document, if you would like to send it forward for review, we can do some legal feedback and ensure that we have the appropriate jurisdiction. Some of the things with the photos, the videos, and everything like that, they sound amazing. We would have to do an official review. When you're looking at embedding links, we would have to vet those and embed those, vet those and review those legally before vetting them. One of the big cautions that I just need to put out is the difference points of view from a governmental agency that has a legislative ask of public protection versus an organization that promotes the profession. So we do have to have a very bold line right there to make sure that that is not crossed, or else we can be violating our legislative ask. So a lot of the things you did put forward, we could, if we weren't able to directly have them on our website, we could have a resources link that would take them off to a separate website that maybe an organization or something would be able to support. and keep updated. But anything that is on our website must specifically be around our Nurse Practice Act laws, and that is with both the statutory and the regulatory requirements. So, but we can link to many other things within that. So just to preface that out there as we begin this journey. And then once we've done a review legally and see what we put on the website, we can put that out to you guys. And if you guys wanted to vote on that, vote on changes stuff, you guys would let us know in advance. We would make it an agenda item so that we can have it, all of the materials posted. We could have mock-up website links and stuff that people could vote, go and view or whatever. And then we can move forward with that so that it could be accepted, and then we can move forward with publishing it.
And thank you, Kathleen. That was a really good synopsis.
It was a pleasure working with you, Samantha.
Likewise. Okay, should we move on to the regulations subcommittee for the regulations, or Karen Karp and Sandra Bordy? Karen, would you like to provide us an update?
So real quick, Karen, before you do that, if it is duplicative of the 7.0 agenda item, you can just defer to that. You are muted, but I read the lips that said I would like to defer to that. So.
Okay. Okay. So we can move on to the regulations.
Sorry, I just unmuted myself, and I would like to defer to that agenda item. So that, and I would like to acknowledge Sandra Bordy and our attorney Kate Bowles, who drafted the AIS for that agenda item. They did a beautiful work on drafting the regulations. So thank you to CANA President Sandra Bordy and Kate Bowles, who drafted those regulations. They are beautifully written. And I would like to thank CANA President Sandra Bordy for those. Beautiful job.
Just to specify, when Karen said our attorney, it is not BRN's attorney. That would have been CANA's attorney. BRN's attorney has not drafted any of the regulations, and in fact has not even reviewed the regulations that are proposed and put forward in the meeting materials today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Karen. We can move on then to the regulation definitions. Joe Martin, would you like to provide us with an update?
I have nothing to update on this. I apologize if nothing to update on.
Okay.
I think that's okay, Joe. As we get to agenda item 7.0, I did notice when the regulation language was put forward that there were a few definitions included in that. And so just moving that together and focusing on that might actually be helpful. So we can address that. Yep. And Joe, on subcommittee work, just because you are kind of a subcommittee of yourself, if you wanted to take a different direction, that's something we could agendaize as well, so that it would not be duplicative. And if you think of a topic or something, maybe legislative ask or something, whatever comes forward, that might be a good focus.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Mark, would you please open for public comment related to agenda item 6.0?
We will be opening for public comment now. Please refer to the screen share for members of the public to see how they should type in their request for comment. I've activated the question and answer feature. Members of the public can indicate that they would like to make a comment by typing into the question box, "I would like to make a comment." Please remember, you will have 2 minutes to make your comments. I will not give a reminder as your time approaches. I do not want to interrupt you nor cause you to lose your train of thought. I will mute your microphone and inform you that your time has expired, and we'll move on to the next member of the public. I'll pause for a moment for members of the public to type in, "I would like to make a comment."
Thank you. And as you work on public comment there, just a reminder, the discussion that was had in the last agenda item was specifically to the website updates. Joe did not have a report out, and Karen deferred to 7.0. So if the comment is about the website updates, we'd be happy to hear from you.
Thank you. Todd Primack would like to make a comment. 1 second, please. Todd, go ahead.
Thank you. Listening to the conversation about what you want to put on the website, it sounds a lot like advocacy, not about information. And it feels like it really went over the line. So thank you for the comment that you need to be sure to stay in the lines.
Thank you for your comment. Committee Chair Polakowski, there are no public requests for comments on the WebEx. We have no public requests for comments in BRN Sacramento. Would you like me to close this window?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Okay, and at this time we move on to agenda item 7.0. This is for discussion and possible action regarding the proposed draft regulatory language for CRNAs.
Then Samantha, I would actually ask that we've been in the meeting for about an hour. If somebody wanted to do a quick 10-minute bio break, returning at 10 o'clock, that would allow us to be able to be focused on this agenda item, which we do expect to go lengthy, especially with public comment. And so if you would consider that, board staff would be very appreciative of that.
Sure, I agree. Would you like to take a 10-minute break?
Yes, second the motion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We could return at 5 after 10:05, please.
Okay.
Thank you. Samantha, we'll have you do a quick roll call just to make sure we establish a quorum again after the break.
Okay. I, Samantha Polakowski, am present. Joseph Martin.
Joseph Martin, present.
Karen Carp.
Karen Carp, present.
Kathleen Theobald.
Kathleen Theobald, present.
Thank you. Quorum established. Okay, so we were on agenda item 7.0, discussion and possible action regarding the proposed draft regulatory language for CRNAs. Karen, would you like to provide a summary explanation and begin discussion?
Sure. So I deferred earlier to 7.0. I'm just going to bring that up on my computer if I can, so I can refer to it. Okay, so item agenda 7.0 is discussion and possible action regarding proposed draft regulatory language for CRNAs. Sorry, my cursor isn't working.
Okay, let me help you out just a bit, Karen, here.
Thank you.
So this is work submitted by the subcommittee of Karen and Sandra. And as Karen had reported out in the earlier, excuse me, agenda item, that it was drafted by Sandra as well as the regulatory attorney for CANA. So what occurs right now, as you guys are becoming familiar with how advisory committees work, we have various subcommittees. The subcommittees are no more than 2 as to not violate vaguely clean. They are allowed to work with any experts, subject matter experts in the field, have various conversations except for the other committee members. advisory committee members here, sorry. And so my understanding is that is done, and that is what these regulations, proposed regulations are. So next steps, now that the subcommittee has proposed them, they do start on page 19 of the agenda materials and go to page 20. This is where the advisory committee as a whole would review this, provide feedback, any edits, any changes, any additions, any deletions. We do also have Marissa Clark in attendance here, and she is our chief of legislation, and she is the person that works with me to, once it's turned over to staff by the board, that will draft the official document that will get the regulatory attorney from DCA approval, and then we will move that through the process. And if you guys want a quick rundown from that, Marissa is on and available, and it'll tell you the process of regulations. In order to get it from the subcommittee to the advisory committee, that's where we are today. You guys would review this, any edits. We could, you guys could accept everything as is. And the motion that you would make is to accept this and recommend it going forward to a board committee. Now, a board committee is a committee made up of board members. We do have a specific committee that works on regulation that affects any of our nurses. And that board committee is called the Nurse Practice Committee. The reason that we have items go through that committee is sometimes there are items that kind of bounce off another one or overlap with another specialty. So that Nurse Practice Committee evaluates CRNA, CNS, NPs, midwives, as well as your RNs, just to make sure that there's no overlap, that there's something hasn't been missed, that there's not unintended consequences. So if you guys do accept this language, you would vote to put it forward to board committee, understanding that your guys' role is that of an advisory committee only. You make, you give advice to that board committee, but the board committee is not required to accept 100%. They can modify, they can change. Then that board committee could make a vote that would then have it go to the board. That point is when the board, the full 9-member board, the policymaking board, would make the decision on whether or not this language is something that they would support moving forward through the regulatory process. When that is done, it does get turned over to Marissa and her team, and together we work on that. And then she can, if you want to take a moment, Marissa, and just kind of go through what happens once you get the language, just so that our public members, we do about 51 people on the call today, on the meeting today, sorry, can be informed of how that process goes.
Sure. I'm not sure if I'm going to echo. One moment.
There's a little bit of an echo, yeah.
Hopefully this works a little bit better. Okay.
Much better.
Troubleshooting. So yeah, so I believe also at the maybe last meeting before, our regulation counsel, Stephen Vaughn, kind of gave an overview of the regulatory process, but just super high level. Once the proposed text that everyone kind of agrees upon is kind of set, then I work with my team on something called initial statement of reasons. And that is us kind of outlining every single word that is in the proposed text, where we tie it back to our authority and statute, the rationale for why we are stating its need, and we submit that to the Office of Administrative Law, who does kind of their own review to make sure it meets all of their standards, and then it goes out for public comment, usually 45 days. And then we have to respond to any comments that come in. Depending if there's changes on those comments, it could go back out for comment. And that process can happen quite a few times. Sometimes it doesn't, which is great, and it goes faster. And then ultimately we submit a final statement of reasons once we feel we've answered all the comments. We have our final text to Office of Administrative Law, and then they are able to either approve or disapprove. So It is kind of an iterative process once that text is finalized, but that is really kind of the first and probably most important part, is getting a really, really solid outline that we can back up with our statutory authority, where it comes from, why we think it's needed, and how it helps inform our regulated public. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, Karen, would you like to take over at this point?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Would you like me to review or read the proposed regulations?
The materials are there and and anybody can read them. I think probably what would be most helpful is a discussion of each one of the items as to why you chose that to be written. If you have any comments of where that came from. A lot of times, if you can tie it back to evidence, if you can submit any of that, that's always helpful, because we do include that in our initial statement of reasons,
Okay.
Which is required by the Office of Administrative Law.
Okay.
And so any kind of discussion, and then you guys can have discussion amongst the advisory committee members here. You guys can go out to public comment. You guys can come back and have more discussion of advisory committee members, and you guys can back out in public comment. We can do this multiple times, however time it needs, to be able to discuss this fully.
Be happy to. Well, starting with definitions, particularly here in definitions, we wanted to define dental office because this was one of the items included in the Nurse Anesthetist Act. Dental office shall mean the office of a dentist holding a permit as described in Business and Professions Code section 2827. We had originally intended to submit legislation that would allow nurse anesthetists to possibly be permitted to hold a permit that that would allow nurse anesthetists to have a anesthesia permit to work and to be able to practice in a dental office. We haven't been able to pursue that so far. So we wanted to expand upon the definition of dental office. So acute care facility, outpatient facility, and dental office, we wanted to expand upon those definitions. So those were more expanded in definitions. In qualifications for certification and recertification, we needed to update who was certifying nurse anesthetists on the national level, because that definition was out of date. So now we have the NBCRNA defined as National Board of Certification and Recertification. So that is updated in this section. And there is a notation in there that will allow the successors of our professional organization to be included in that definition if a successor succeeds the current professional organization. We have a scope of practice section that defines who is recognized as an advanced practice registered nurse who performs independent anesthesia services. That certified registered nurse anesthetist shall not be required to perform duties of a registered nurse at the same time as the CRNA is performing the duties of a CRNA at the same time. So that is defined in that section. And then there's another section on credentialing and scope. So those are the sections that are defined in this entire piece. So just to do a recount of what's in this, what are in these sections. So that's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone have a comment on this in the committee? Okay, we can move to Mark. Mark, would you please open for public comment related to agenda item 7.0?
We will be opening for public comment now. Please refer to the screen share for members of the public to see how they should type in their request for comment. I've activated the question and answer feature. Members of the public can indicate that they would like to make a comment by typing into the question box, "I would like to make a comment." Please remember, you will have 2 minutes to make your comment. I will not give a reminder as your time approaches. I do not want to interrupt you nor cause you to lose your train of thought. I will mute your microphone and inform you that your time has expired, and we'll move on to the next member of the public. I'll pause for a moment for members of the public to type in, "I would like to make a comment."
Thank you. And as Mark is pulling that up and we're getting public commenters set up, I do want to let you guys know that you absolutely can have continued discussion on the regulations and any thoughts on that on the public comment as they come in to seek additional feedback and at any point. You do not have to stay silent or not engage like you guys did for the public comment for items not on the agenda. So if there is a person that does come in public comment, you would like to elicit further information, you can. So you can engage and have conversation with them as an advisory committee. So just so you guys are fully aware of that. We do still limit the commenter themselves to 2 minutes. But if you guys are interacting and asking questions and stuff, that can go longer.
Perfect. Okay, so we do have a long list, but we are going to go with the BRN Sacramento location first, since they only have one person, and that way this person, we can get them done first, and then we will start with the list on the WebEx. So want to start with the person in BRN Sacramento? Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Melanie Rowe. I am a CRNA and I'm the practice director for the California Association of Nurse Anesthesiology. We support the proposed regulations and thank you for your work on this committee. There are 6 times where certified nurse anesthetist is mentioned, and if I could just request that certified registered nurse anesthetist, that word registered, to be added in 6 of those parts of the sentence would be great. And look forward to this regulatory process. And if CANA can be a resource for the statement of reasons, we are happy to do so. And we look forward to helping to support how these regulations can inform the public. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Joshua Kemper would like to make a comment. 1 second, please.
Hello again, my name is Joshua Kemper, a CRNA practicing independently down in Visalia, California. I'd like to voice my strong support of the draft regulatory language while identifying a few potentially unclear phrases. While I'm no expert in administrative law, some of this language may not actually be unclear, so I apologize in advance if that's the case. Melanie Rowe already highlighted one of my concerns, the use of the title certified nurse anesthetist rather than the customary titles that CRNAs go by. Next, in scope of practice, A1 through 3, the language shall not be required to perform certain tasks like that of a circulating nurse. I think implies that independence may be conditional, so I'd like to suggest strengthening the language to be more assertive and definitive, including perhaps even saying something like a certified registered nurse anesthetist is expressly prohibited from being assigned or required to perform the duties of a perioperative registered nurse, and so on and so forth. And another line saying something like a CRNA shall practice independently and shall not provide nurse anesthesia services pursuant to standardized procedures or under the supervision of any physician, podiatrist, or dentist requesting anesthesia services. And then the next one stating that the anesthesia services shall encompass preoperative, intraoperative, and postoperative care and so forth might be twisted to suggest that CRNAs only provide care when specifically requested and could otherwise be limited. So I'd like to suggest clarification that CRNAs have the authority to manage the full spectrum of anesthesia-related care independently as soon as a patient is admitted for surgery or whatever reason they would be admitted needing anesthesia, using language like CRNAs are independently authorized to manage the full continuum of anesthesia care, including preoperative, intraoperative, and postoperative services. Once a patient is admitted for a surgical or dental procedure without the need for separate or specific requests for each aspect of care. Just something that's come up with multiple surgeons that I've talked to about this, concerned that if we want to change the type of anesthesia, then the surgeon would have to go back and change an order for anesthesia from general anesthesia to spinal anesthesia, for example. And they're concerned, they're kind of spooked by that idea that they're somehow liable in that situation, which clearly they are not. Moving forward to potentially unclear language for the requirement for trainees to practice under the supervision of CRNAs or physician anesthesiologists might be misinterpreted to suggest that CRNAs themselves must practice under similar supervision. So suggest adding an additional language saying, comma, at the end of the trainees section, say, comma, whereas certified registered nurse anesthetists practice independently without such supervision. Again, some of this might not actually be unclear, but it came across as unclear to me on a quick read. So thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Charles Griffiths would like to make a comment. 1 second, please. Hello, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. My name is Charles Griffiths. I'm a certified registered nurse anesthetist, a PhD nurse researcher, and a clinical instructor of anesthesiology at USC's Department of Anesthesiology. I have performed over 10,000 anesthetics in my career in full accordance with the provisions of the California Nurse Practice Act. I just want to say that I support the proposed regulations. I feel that they will clarify the critical role of the certified registered nurse anesthetist in provision of healthcare for California. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Brian Tune would like to make a comment. 1 second, please.
Good morning, Brian Toon, Central California Anesthesiology Solutions. I'm the executive managing partner. We manage 22 independent nurse anesthesia practice sites throughout Central California, all the way to the coast and down towards Southern California. So our population is large in that the patients that we serve. I applaud these language changes. On a weekly basis, I receive phone calls from institutions requesting assistance in dental care. This is very big in the Central Valley, and patients are going truly a year without receiving the appropriate dental care. This is almost exclusively pediatric dental. So these changes would really help us to appropriately serve these patients and meet the need that exists. So I applaud these changes and hope that the BRN will act on these to help improve practice and improve patient care within California. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Lucas Evanson would like to make a comment. 1 second, please. Lucas, I have you in here 3 times, so I'm unmuting every single one of them. Go ahead and choose whichever one you want to unmute. There you go.
Phone and my computer, but the mic on my computers don't work. So my name is Lucas Evanson. I'm speaking on behalf of the California Medical Association. CMA is still analyzing the proposed language. We do not yet have a position or suggested amendments. The proposed language seeks to rework the way the healthcare system engages with CRNAs, including how entities and people that aren't within the board's jurisdiction engage with them. In addition to any policy concerns, it warrants a full vetting before moving forward to ensure that the changes are within the board's authority to regulate. We look forward to the opportunity to provide additional comments as the process develops. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Todd Primack would like to make a comment. 1 second, please.
Hi. Hello, I'm Todd Primack. I'm an osteopathic physician, and I represent the California Society of Anesthesiologists. We'd like to voice our concerns in opposition to the proposed regulations regarding nurse anesthetist. First, according to California law, nurse anesthetists are not independent providers. And it's false, misleading to patients, and possibly even illegal to state otherwise. Nurse anesthetists can only administer anesthesia under the prescriptive order of a physician, surgeon, dentist, or podiatrist pursuant to Business and Professions Code Section 2725B2. The proposed regulations should be amended to reflect this requirement. Second, the proposed language is attempting to expand nurse anesthetist's scope of practice beyond that authorized by statute. Extremely troubling is the proposed language stating that once a physician has requested the anesthesia to be performed, the nurse anesthetist is free from supervision. This language is inconsistent with California pharmacy law, which requires that the physician to provide a patient and medication of specific order. This requirement is in place for good reason. Physicians have training and education to manage patients when complex issues arise and may warrant further care, to manage additional medical conditions, and possibly to transfer a patient or admit them to the hospital. Third, language that allows nurse anesthetists to use the honorific and abbreviations of earned doctoral degree is prohibited under Business and Professions Code Section 2054. Only persons licensed as physicians and surgeons by California Medical Board are allowed to use the doctor title. Use of these designations by nurse anesthetists or other non-physician providers would be extremely misleading to the public and patients. Thank you for allowing me to comment.
Thank you for your comment. Daphne would like to make a comment. 1 second, please.
Hello. Am I there?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Okay. I accidentally hit the button twice too. So I am a retired RN. I am a retired attorney. I challenge your proposed draft regulations because they are outside the scope of California law. You are encouraging your nurse anesthetist to act outside the legal scope of practice. You are failing to protect the public from harm caused by your nurse anesthetist. Let me explain. CMS, CPHD, and other government agencies investigate perioperative deaths and perioperative severe injuries. The CMS Stanislaus Surgical Hospital report of 2/5/2024 documents situations where CRNAs acted outside their legal scope of practice, misled their legal scope of practice, and probably violated controlled substance laws by ordering narcotics while lacking DEA license. This report states that CRNAs ordered and administered medications without medical doctor's orders. CRNAs ordered contraindicated medications. CRNAs failed to provide appropriate post-operative care. CRNAs failed to consult with anesthesiologists when perioperative emergencies occurred. These CRNAs failures caused timely delay in treatment for perioperative LAST, aspiration, hypoxia, hypotension, and AFib. Please provide CRNAs with appropriate statutory scope of practice. Please take action to prevent CRNAs from further harming their patients. Please protect the public and your profession. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Dr. Antonio Hernandez Conte would like to make a comment. 1 second, please.
My name is Dr. Antonio Hernandez Conte, and I'm representing the California Society of Anesthesiologists as their immediate past president. I am also a clinical professor at the Kaiser Permanente School of Medicine and a partner with the Southern California Permanente Medical Group and an SRNA instructor with the Kaiser Permanente Nurse Anesthesia School. We would like to voice our concerns to the proposed regulations regarding nurse anesthetists. In particular, given the recent series of events that occurred under a CRNA-only anesthesia model without anesthesiologists involved at Stanislaus Surgical Hospital in Modesto, California, the California Society of Anesthesiologists is extremely concerned about the safety of California patients. if the proposed regulatory language were adopted. Let's be clear. The investigation was triggered by harm that came to patients, patient complaints, and adverse patient outcomes. This was not a politically instigated investigation. The lack of judgment, inability to manage complications, and delay in patient care exhibited by nurse anesthetist and Modesto at SSH led to significant harm for not just one, but multiple patients. This harm is detailed in a 500-page report issued by the California Health and Human Services Agency in conjunction with the U.S. Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. Importantly, this report underscores that California law does not authorize nurse anesthetists to practice as independent providers. Additionally, the proposed language includes the phrases nurse anesthesiology resident and resident registered nurse anesthesiologist. These phrases are not recognized by California law, but more importantly, the accrediting body, the Standards for Accreditation of Nurse Anesthesia Programs, do not recognize these phrases either. Instead, the accrediting body uses students or nurse anesthesia students, and California statutes refer to them as trainees or nurse anesthesia students. Finally, because nurse anesthetists do not complete a formal accredited anesthesia residency program, and no such accredited program exists for nurse anesthetists, these phrases are highly inappropriate and would be confusing in hospital surgical settings. Within my own institution at the Southern California Permanente Medical Group, the use of the terms nurse anesthesiology resident or nurse resident or nurse anesthesiology are prohibited by the Permanente Medical Group, and that is a formal agreement with the Kaiser Permanente School of Nurse Anesthesia. I'd like to recommend against any of these proposals on behalf of myself as a Permanente physician and as the immediate past president of the California Society of Anesthesiologists. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Thomas Batchelor would like to make a comment. 1 second, please.
Bachelor, DNP CRNA in Southern California, and board member of the California Association of Nurse Anesthesiology. In short, I'd like to voice support of the proposed regulatory language update for CRNAs so that we may continue to provide and/or increase access to high quality care for Californians. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Kristen Roman would like to make a comment. 1 second, please.
Graduate from a doctoral nurse in hi, can you hear me
Go
now?
ahead. Yes, you're fine. Go ahead. Sorry.
No problem. My name is Dr. Kristen Roman. I am a doctoral graduate from the doctorate program at the University of Southern California Nurse Anesthesia Practice. I do go by the title doctor with the CRNA after it, and I do introduce myself as a nurse anesthesiologist to my patient. I do so because that reflects the education that I pursued and graduated from an accredited facility, as well as passing a doctoral level, national level licensing exam to be able to practice to the full scope of my practice. I also use that terminology to my patients so that they understand who I am, what my education is, and the care that I will be providing them. I am in full support of all the regulatory language changes that are proposed today. I do believe that they will increase access to care to those patients who are most in need of care within the state of California. I do take personal offense to any of those individuals who are attacking my education, my ability to provide care, or questioning my ability to help people who need help in the state of California. CRNAs have an incredible safety record. You cannot question our safety. All research points to safe care being provided by CRNA providers. Attacking our scope of practice in this way is offensive to me, and it's offensive to our patients. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. AR would like to make a comment. 1 second, please.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I apologize. I put you on there and it wasn't able to change it. So my name is Dr. Christina Menner. I'm the president-elect for California Society of Anesthesiologists, and I would like to speak against any of the proposed language for regulatory changes. In reference both to prior speakers and as well as documents I've reviewed myself, you know, most of the things that we have concern about are the way that patients receive information from providers. When you use the term doctor in a medical setting, patients understand that to be a physician meaning an MD or a DO, not another type of doctor. If someone goes in and is a doctor of physical therapy, they need to introduce themselves as such. So if you use the term doctor, you need to also state that you are a CRNA. As well, CRNA is a certified registered nurse anesthetist, not anesthesiologist. That is not their licensure, and that is not their board certification. And that should not be utilized in any of the language used in the California statute. I'd also like to speak against the safety records, in particular, the CDPH records and CMH records in regards to the Stanislaus Surgical Hospital. Particularly, harm was done. Both of this, as well as the doctors in Modesto, both had immediate jeopardy threats, neither of which were prompted by my organization or any anesthesiologist. These were prompted, as CDPH has said, from any other type of either patient complaint or something that came directly to them. We found out about these immediate jeopardy things through news articles, just like the rest of the public did. So having reviewed the report from CMS and CDPH, specifically for Stanislaus, direct harm has occurred directly related to CRNA care without additional physicians available. And I speak strongly against any moving forward with any of this proposed language. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Committee Chair Polakowski, there are no other public requests for comments on the WebEx. We have no more comments in BRN Sacramento. Would you like me to close this window?
Mark,
Sorry,
this is Macaulay. We do have one more comment.
Oh, sorry.
Sacramento, sorry.
Okay.
Go
can you hear
ahead if
me?
we're, there you go. A little bit louder.
A little bit louder. Okay. This is Emily Frank. Again, I'm a California certified registered nurse anesthetist working at UC Davis Medical Center, and I'm the president-elect of California Association of Nurse Anesthesiology. I'd just like to clarify that despite some of the previous comments, there is case law from 2010 from the California Appellate Court that states that CRNAs can practice independently, and the judicial opinion is formed from multiple citations of California statutes. So I just strongly disagree with, and not only I, but all the California Appellate Court disagrees with the statements previously made. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Hi, I'd like to make a comment. Joe Martin, certified registered nurse anesthesiologist in California.
1 second, Joe, really quick, just because we have to follow procedure. We're still in public comment. So before the committee starts to have their discussion, we do need to close out public comment first, and then you have the floor after that. So Mark, is there any more public comment on the WebEx?
None. We have none on the WebEx, and we are done with BRN Sacramento.
Thank you. Samantha, would you like us to close out public comment, please?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And then just for the public to understand, we do have an option to go back out to public comment if it is requested by the members today. We did allow for ample time to have very robust discussion around this topic because this is the first time that everybody is seeing language. So at this time, I'll turn it back over to Samantha, and you can try to facilitate. I will jump in as well. Comment between the advisory committee members. And I think Joe might have a comment.
Go ahead, Joe.
Yes, thank you. Joe Martin, certified registered nurse anesthesiologist in the state of California. Appreciate everybody's time here today and comments. I definitely support the proposed draft regulatory language for CRNAs and echo the comments of some of my colleagues. A few things that came up that it's just important for the public to know. The issue on safety. The literature is replete, and I would encourage, an independent study that was done in 2010 by Health Affairs that looked at over 700,000 patient interactions, and this is data that was aggregated by CMS, Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services, and they found that there was absolutely no harm to patients with over 700,000 encounters, whether they had anesthesia provided by a physician, by a CRNA independently, or in a care team model. There was absolutely no harm, and that is a very robust number, over 700,000 cases. It's important that the public knows that CRNAs have time and time again been shown to provide safe, quality, effective care. And in fact, this is evidence. Something else to bring up is that, I'm also served as a program director at National University in Fresno, California, where we educate doctorally prepared nurse anesthesiologists to graduate. And the comment that was made that CRNAs, I think it was by Dr. Conte, and I appreciate your comment, but it's factually inaccurate and definitely misleading to the public. CRNAs are educated with over 90 hours of advanced pharmacology, which rivals physician education in advanced pharmacology. And so the claims that there is no education, understanding on how to prescribe medications in that perioperative period is just factually inaccurate and misleading as well. Everything from pain management, acute management, wellness, and substance abuse disorder, all of that is educated in the curriculum of every CRNA program across the United States. As my colleague, Ms. Frank, brought up, the appellate court in 2010 made it clear and upheld not only California opt-out, but that CRNAs are allowed to practice independently in the state of California. This has been going on for decades, and so any comments to mislead the public that something is being egregious and a deviation is factually inaccurate. And ultimately, why I think everyone is here today, we're here to provide care to the public, care to the community. And some of the things that were brought up today, that CRNAs provide unsafe care, patient harm, that's actually factually inaccurate. Having read the actual 2567 report from CDPH on Stanislaus Surgical Hospital and the ones that have been in other Central Valley hospitals, there's been not one finding that actual patient harm happened. You're referencing news articles, and the public is reading the news articles, but I would encourage the public, under the Freedom of Information Act, you can go find the 2567 for these facilities, and there's not one definitive anything that showed that patient harm actually happened. I would encourage the public to do that due diligence. Don't be misled by large voices here that have an agenda. That's all I have. Thank you.
So I'd like
Thank
to
you, Joe.
take this time real quick before I kind of go through some of the stuff that I feel as the BRN EO I will need to address. I want to make sure that there is nothing further from the committee at this time, knowing that you guys could jump in at any point. Okay, perfect.
I do have a comment.
Yes, go for it, Karen.
Karen Karp, and I just want to point out that CRNAs in California have always been exempted from registering with the DEA in accordance with, sorry, I'm reading. Sorry, losing my place. Sorry, CRNAs in California have always been exempted from registering with the DEA in accordance with the Code of Federal Regulations, Title 21, Part 1301.22, for engaging in usual and customary regulations, clinical anesthesia practice that does not involve writing prescriptions for patients. to fill at a pharmacy once those patients are discharged from the hospital or ambulatory point of service, at least since the early 1980s. Therefore, CRNAs licensed in California are authorized in accordance with the Code of Federal Regulations to write medication orders under the auspices of their own facility's DEA registration number. And this is the only protocol that is needed for CRNA clinical anesthesia practice in California. So I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Karen, and can you repeat that again? It came through a little muddled, and I want to make sure that the public has that.
Sure. CRNAs are exempted from registering with the DEA in accordance with the Code of Federal Regulations, Title 21, Part 1301.22, for engaging in usual and customary clinical anesthesia practice that does not involve writing prescriptions for patients to fill at a pharmacy once those patients are discharged from the hospital or ambulatory point of service, at least since the early 1980s. Therefore, CRNAs licensed in California are authorized in accordance with the Code of Federal Regulations to write medication orders under the auspices of their own facility's DEA registration number. So that's the only protocol that is needed for a CRNA clinical anesthesia practice in California.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That did come through clear on mine, and we'll be able to capture that in the meeting minutes.
Thank you.
So a couple of the things that were brought up that I do think that we will need to address is on the credentialing and scope of practice under D, where under C, sorry, where it says including a nurse anesthesiology resident, registered nurse anesthesiologist. That will need to either be added to the definitions section above to clarify that, because in our statutory law that we have right now, the title that is used is nurse anesthetist. And that is the only title that's in there. It's under Business Professions Code 2826A, and it says nurse anesthetist means a person who is a registered nurse licensed by the board who has met the standards for certification from the board, and it goes on. Our statute does not refer to nurse anesthesiologist. And I know that this has been an ask from the nation, throughout the nation, or sorry, not from the nation, but throughout the various boards of nursing, throughout various laws being implemented and bills being written and stuff. So if we were to utilize this option to clarify that, we would have to do that either in a definition section of our regulation, and of course it goes back on the statute is supported in statute. The other one that that was brought up in public comment was the use doctor. We do understand, and I need to make sure our advisory committee members understand as well. There's a bill that is currently moving through the session that addresses that, and we are bound by anything that does alter that statutory requirement. The statute that the person did bring forward in public comment was accurate, and that is a current statute, and there is changes being done around that. So tomorrow is the last day to get out appropriations, and then everything kind of moves on. So we're wrapping up the end of this legislative session. We'll see what happens with that term doctor, knowing that we will have to adopt that moving forward. Because we too at the BRN are bound by statute and the laws of California. And I did see your hand, Joe. I promise I did. So I will pause and allow you to address that.
Thank you, Lori. And just because this is such an important issue for all of us, the public, our patients, and both sides of this issue, there was something brought up about supervision in some of these public comments, and very important that the public is aware. The California Department of Public Health on June 18th, 2015, they released an AFL All Facilities letter 15-07. And this is under the CMS guidelines, Title 42 of the Code of Federal Regulations. But in that letter, the CDPH itself, and I'm going to read verbatim, and this is public, that the public should go out and find. It says, this with AFL is being reissued to clarify that in California, certified registered nurse anesthetists do not require physician supervision pursuant to an exemption recognized by CMS. This AFL rescinds previous guidance regarding procedural sedation contained in AFL 1317. You know, it's very important that the public knows that, because when you see things in the media, when you see things from other organizations that possibly aren't in favor of CRNA's independent practice, the governor has decided, CMS has decided, and the CDPH has also decided, and it's on the public record for over a decade, that CRNAs in the state of California do not require physician supervision pursuant to an exemption recognized by CMS. So I just wanted to submit that to the public so that you can have an educated and informed decision for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Not a problem. I appreciate that. I do have an understanding there may be an AFL updated one issued to address this. So hopefully when that comes out, I'll be able to see it as well, and we'll be able to move on that one. Some of the other items that I do think that we need to point out on the regulations in front of us is on the qualifications for certification and recertification. Our board will have to do some updates to that section as we kind of move that through the process, just so you guys know procedurally wise. When we have an application, or when we have a process for people to become licensed, we have to define that in regulations. That includes how that application will be delivered. And so we will have to specifically state out that they'll have to have their applicant's full legal name, other names used, their physical address, their mailing address, their email, their phone number, social security number, birth date, RN license number, etc. And so there will be some additions to those sections that you guys will probably see as this moves forward. There will be, you know, with further discussion from you guys, need for possibly more definitions, especially if you do choose that you want to go forward with utilizing the language of the, registered nurse anesthesiologist. You would have to define that. If you were using the nurse anesthesiologist resident, you would have to again define that. So those would have to be updated in the definition section if you guys are choosing to go through that. If you are not choosing to pull those additional terms out and you're staying consistent with what the public commenter recommended, where you're just using resident and student, those are defined in other areas of law, and they do not change or go against the anesthetist language that is in our law. The other section around the dental area, we are fully aware that there was a dental bill that is CRNA dental bill that moved through and did not complete the process this legislative session. And so with that in mind for permitting offices and such, that would more than likely be required to go through a legislative process, specifically stating in our statute right now. I'm just trying to find that just so you can guys see the potential conflicting language that would have to be addressed is, I apologize. Sorry, it's just not coming forward. There's a section in there, I will find it, I don't want to hold up the meeting, where it specifically states that the dentist must hold the permit for anesthesia if a nurse anesthetist is going to deliver it. So that would have to be addressed. And that's not something that we can do in regulations, understanding kind of the different times that we've had the conversation where it has been specified that we are only able to write regulations that clarify and support the statutory language that we already have. And so Business Professions Code 2827, I found it. It says if a general anesthetic agent is administered in a dental office, the dentist shall hold a permit authorized by Article 2.7. And so that would have to be updated. Now, understanding that anything you find in the Business Professions Code Article 7, Nurse Anesthetist, which is the only thing you're going to find in law on our website under the Nurse Practice Act, that is all statutory language, and the only way to change or alter that language is through the legislative process. So at that point, there are a couple options, and Marissa, feel free to jump in if I start going to the left and I need to stay in the middle, is because she is the expert, is a organization, including potentially the BRN, could look for an author that would be a legislative representative. And that author would then draft language with the sponsoring organization. So if CANA does it, if BRN does it, or anybody at that point, they would draft the language that would change anything within this article. That language would have to be introduced as a bill at the beginning of a legislative session. It would have to pass both houses, it would have to pass appropriations, etc. And then it would have to be put into law by the governor. And so it has to go through that process if any of the language in this article is to be managed. And that is not something the BRN has any authority to go in and change or even put through the Office of Administrative Law process. When you see on our website, there is a separate section under the law section where it's called California Code of Regulations. That's our Title 16, Division 14, and you'll see Articles 1 through 10. What you'll notice very clearly is there is not an article that is addressed to nurse anesthetist or clinical nurse specialist, because historically BRN has never had any regulations that outlined anything for CNSs or CRNAs. So that is why this advisory committee was formed. That's why the subcommittees were formed, and all of this occurred prior to the incident that seems to be the very large topic right now. So the board had identified that there was a need for regulations. This advisory committee was formed with a specific task to focus on regulations and all other items that affect nurse anesthetist care in California. And regulation is an ask that will be done. So we will be moving forward with regulation. What that specific regulation looks like when it's in its final form and going through will truly 100% depend on whether or not we have statutory authority. As we go through line by line, the regulations that were presented in front of us, Marissa, myself, Carrie, our sitting in board legal counsel right now, as well as DCA's regulatory counsel, Stephen Vong, who has been on previous meetings with us, will line by line, as Marissa said, tie it back to a statutory authority. If at any point we find sections in here that we cannot tie back to statutory authority, we will have to let you guys know that we won't be able to move that forward, that will then have to go through a legislative process. That's why I kind of alluded at the beginning when Joe did not have necessary report out for definitions, that we may look to change his subcommittee focus to, instead of doing regulatory definitions, maybe have a legislative focus, so that he could research any of the items that are discovered through this regulatory process that would need to have a statutory implementation before we can move forward. And so that could be a perfect opportunity just to kind of expand his, instead of regulatory definition, maybe look at legislative definition kind of process. So just something to consider. And then as we go through this, it is, like the public comment has said multiple times, important that we take into consideration what the scope of practice is as defined, get similar language that you could find. And an amazing resource that I always refer back to is called the National Council of State Boards of Nursing. National Council of State Boards of Nursing actually held what they call an APRN consensus model that they have. They reference, it's been out there, it's been utilized, and they have a specific watch on all 4 of the roles of the APRN model. I'm sorry, APRN roles. So your nurse midwife, your nurse anesthetist, your clinical nurse specialist, and your nurse practitioner. And they also watch all of the laws that are introduced every year on all of the various APRNs as well. And there is many states where there are conflicting scope of practice for our advanced practice RNs. This is not something that is unique just to CRNAs. So as I'm sure you guys have heard, California had a very robust process where nurse practitioners were trying vehemently to get an independent scope of practice. We've always had them work underneath standardized procedures. So they had to go and get legislative support, pass a bill, that bill's AB 890. And in process, there is a pathway to independent practice, but that is not something that is given on licensure. On licensure, they are still nurse practitioners required to work under standardized procedures. Once they do that for 3 years, they then go to a practice that has to be in specified group settings. It's not an independent setting. And within that specified group setting, it actually says there has to be with at least 1 physician or surgeon. And then you do that for 3 years. And once that is done, then they can go to a independent practice where they don't have to have oversight of the physician. They don't have to have standardized procedures from the physician, and they're not limited to specific group settings. And I just want to apologize. My German Shepherd was making herself comfortable behind me. So if you saw that, apologize for that. So with that, that had to go through a legislative session we had to implement. That was implemented a few years ago. And if you guys are watching the legislative session this year, there's more updates to that nurse practitioner independent practice that's currently being done and fine-tuned. So that might be a stepped-in process that we will have to follow. There may be stuff that we can do in regulations now, but then there may be some legislative asks that need to be done, put through, and then further finding done after that. We're just unsure of the process yet because we're just starting. One of the comments in the regulation and the public commenter that was really wanting to define and clarify scope of practice and really pushing towards that independence, really saying they can't work as an RN, and if you're a nurse anesthetist, and shall not, I think were some of the language that he was using, and that you shall not be required to utilize standardized procedures. So I want to take this moment to really kind of explain standardized procedures and really understand the use of the word shall not, When you utilize the words shall not with a person that's holding dual licensure, that becomes a area that you guys have to consider on what an unintended consequence that would be. So if you guys are licensed as a nurse anesthetist in our state, you must first and foremost hold a license as an RN, right? So you are both an RN and a nurse anesthetist in our state. So if you hold and you're holding up to your highest level of licensure, which is your nurse anesthetist as the advanced practice RN, if you say things like shall not, you may limit your ability to work in a secondary role. You may work as an RN in an ICU still. That is a very common practice for nurse anesthetists, that they maintain their role in the ICU as an RN, but then they also work as a nurse anesthetist. If you're saying that they shall not be worked as an RN, and that's in law, you would then prohibit that nurse anesthetist from holding and working as an RN. So I would like to caution you guys on utilizing strong language like that. You may consider language such as while working under your license of a CRNA in a position for a CRNA, however you want to define that, the facility that is employing you or contracting with you, whatever, shall not require you to do a dual role, including RN, something to that statement, so that you're not affecting all practice throughout California. If somebody wants to use both of their licenses that they do fully have. Another time that becomes very important is potentially with disciplinary action or such. There might be at some point where somebody would lose their nurse anesthetist license, but maintain their RN license, right? So then you want to be able to understand and address those issues there. The other one is the standardized procedures aspect. So to be very, very clear on that, any RN, and remember your first license as an RN, can and shall follow standardized procedures if they're in place. Those standardized procedures allow for any RN, no matter APRN or RN, to work in the realm of medicine based on competence. That is a specific regulatory authority that we have within our Nurse Practice Act. And it requires 11 specific items to be done to make up this standardized procedures. A nurse anesthetist could get an expanded scope based on the use of standardized procedures. And the reason that I share that out is what has occurred in the statutory language for the nurse midwife. So as you guys are looking at writing language for nurse anesthetists, it is always a really good practice to go back into what is current California law for other people that are similar. In the excuse me, the nurse midwife scope of practice, there are options for them to utilize standardized procedures that can expand their scope outside of the immediate kind of birthing, labor, and delivery aspect. It was something that they used prior to a legislative update that allowed them to provide contraceptive care, STD care, partner care for various treatments, etc. And so you can utilize standardized procedures in addition to what your practice limits you to your education, etc. And so again, I caution you guys from kind of really robustly bolstering that section on standardized procedures, saying you shall not, right? I would again very clearly define your path to your independent practice. And I would very clearly define that when standardized procedures could be appropriate versus limiting them. So that is some area of feedback there. And then, sorry, I'm just trying to pull it up. I just lost my place and it's gone. Okay, that meant I searched. So those were some just big ones just kind of stood out for me. The other thing is you may want to, Karen, what you had put when you reached out and kind of added here the Code of Federal Regulation Title 21 1301.22, right? And addressed how you guys could use a facility DEA for issuing, choosing, selecting, whatever term you guys land on for Schedule 2, right? So that's not something that is clearly spelled out in our statute. It's not something that is clearly spelled out in our regulations. So if that something is there, that again could be put forward as a definition, right? That utilizing those medications is done underneath this federal practice, right? And so then you would specify that so that if a facility reviewer, if a CEO of a hospital or a CNO of a hospital that had questions or whatever could go to our Nurse Practice Act, find the regulations, and find that reference. And that would help to quell some of the arguments of, are they breaking the law? Are they following the law? Because our Nurse Practice Act is law. So you would be able to specifically point back to that. The reason I think that that is something that could or should be addressed is because when you look at our other independent practitioners, our nurse practitioners and our nurse midwives, the only way that they have the ability to do any Schedule II is through a furnishing license that has a specific statement for Schedule II that the DEA utilizes, right? So that that DEA number is tied specifically to that nurse practitioner. That DEA number is tied specifically to nurse midwives. So if that is what our healthcare facilities are used to utilizing, and they are unfamiliar with an alternative pathway, it would move you all to make sure that that is added and reviewed to ensure that, again, we have statutory authority for that. So just some, high level kind of critiques or redirects and stuff, just to have some more expansive clarifying language, understanding that regulations are specifically made for clarity, and that is truly the only role that we have with them. When you're looking at licensure, and specifically that section that you guys have as qualifications for certification and recertification, understand that when you guys look and work on that language, you address the new grad license, right? It's never been an nurse anesthetist anywhere, and this is their initial time. That you address the application of an out-of-state nurse anesthetist and how they would come into California specifically. One of the thoughts that I always have when I'm looking at process improvement with our advanced practice RNs is currently when we have an RN license, we get transcripts from every pre-licensure, every course that you've done as part of your pre-licensure program. Those transcripts are utilized to ensure that you meet the California requirements for licensure as an RN here. And sometimes those transcripts are a single school that you went to your pre-licensure nursing program at. And some of them are 5 or 6 different schools because you did some community college, you did some technical college, you did a couple summer courseworks, and then you did your nursing practice, nurse practice program and was able to become licensed. In addition to that, when you add on your additional license or certification as a certified registered nurse anesthetist in California, right now, you guys are the only one of our advanced practice RNs that are required to have national certification for licensure. All of our other advanced practice RNs are not required. They can get licensed just by finishing a California approved program here in California, and they do not require national certification. That sounds odd, I know, because as anybody knows that if you're going to bill for your independent practice through CMS, you must hold national certification. Again, there are advanced practice RNs that are employed within hospitals and other organizations that don't require billing. And so there is that pathway for them to not be nationally certified. You guys do not have that pathway at this point. So that would be something that you would want to consider. Do you want to continue with requiring national certification for licensure? Do you want a stepped-in approach? Kentucky law that passed this year, because they were the other state that had a holdout, allowing for advanced practice RNs to work without national certification, had a 6 months where you can get permitted as an advanced practice RN while you're taking your national certification. And then you would, after 6 months, you were required to have national certification. The other thing to think about is whether or not in our process, because these regulations are for our board staff as well to implement licensure, do you want us requesting transcript from your nurse anesthetist academic program? And if not, what would be the alternative? Would you want us just to simply rely on the national certification, or do you want to have both? Transcripts of completion of your program as well as national certification. That is our current practice right now, is we do require full transcripts from your nurse anesthetist program, and we do require national certification. If you wanted to keep with that standard, that would be outlined in these regulations on what is required for licensure and what is required to maintain and renew. Additionally, you would have to address the international grad, right? So we've addressed California grad, we've addressed US grad, and practicing license that would want to endorse into California. Well, now we also in regulations will need to address the international grad. How does the international person that could be educated and practicing as a nurse anesthetist, maybe in the Philippines, maybe in Russia, wants to come over to California? How would we be their initial United States license entry point? And what do they have to do to turn in to be able to qualify for that? That too would be addressed in the the qualifications for certification. So some feedback on that section. And I know this is lengthy, I'm sorry, but this is the regulatory process.
Well,
The next one, yes, go for it.
Joe Martin, Lori, thank you for that. I appreciate these suggestions, and I agree. We definitely need to take this under consideration and navigate as we move forward with this. With that said, on section 7, the discussion of possible action regarding the proposed draft regulatory language for CRNAs, I think we've had plenty of time, even prior up to this meeting, and I would make a motion that we take a vote to move forward with a proposed draft language for CRNAs.
Second the motion.
Thank you.
So quick clarification before we go out to public comment for this is there are no edits to the proposed language. You are accepting them as written, and this is what you want us to put forward to our nurse practice committee.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. So at this point, we do have a first and a second. Samantha, you can take it out to public comment. You are on mute, Samantha.
Thank you. Mark, will you open for public comment, please?
We will be opening for public comment now. Please refer to the screen share for members of the public to see how they should type in their request for comment.
Sorry, just for clarity on the part that was brought, Lori, and just everyone, to say want to continue with the draft proposal of language. We want to continue to move forward with that. Not that this is final. We want to continue with the draft language. Yeah, just so that's clear. Yes.
Correct.
Thank you.
Just procedurally wise, so you guys understand, because we do have this as a subcommittee, this draft language would go to the nurse practice committee, then would go to a board. So we're looking at about 3 months for that to occur, right? And then because it is not in at any point, if you're at the nurse practice and they vote not to take it to the board, nurse practice might not accept the language because there's a lot that would need to be addressed to make this implementable. In its current form, it is not implementable. And so then at that point, just so you guys know, because I know you guys are looking to have this as expedited through as possible, right? This is very important to you guys. The reason I was really pushing for discussion and further edits here is our nurse practice committee would potentially deny it, seeking further guidance. And so then you would move forward 2 spaces and you'd be back at square one because it would come back to your advisory committee. So I understand that you're wanting to move this along really fast, but by moving along a document that has not been fully thought out, you do risk the possibility that it might come back to you. So just for full understanding there.
But I would make a motion to ask to restate the initial motion, and that we would be able to keep it with the advisory committee to work on some more edits and make sure that our language is perfect so that then we could proceed. So I'm restating the motion that we want to keep it with the advisory committee to make some more edits.
I second the restated motion.
Thank you.
And motion passes.
Thank you. And it looks like we are still in the process of now going out to public comment. Is that accurate? Thank you.
Yes. Yes. Mark, will you take us to public comment, please?
I've activated the question and answer feature. Members of the public can indicate that they would like to make a comment by typing into the question box, "I would like to make a comment." Please remember, you will have 2 minutes to make your comments. I will not give a reminder as your time approaches. I do not want to interrupt you nor cause you to lose your train of thought. I will mute your microphone and inform you that your time has expired, and we'll move on to the next member of the public. I'll pause for a moment for members of the public to type in, "I would like to make a comment." Committee Chair Polakowski, there are no public requests for comments in Sacramento. We have no public requests for comments on the WebEx. Would you like me to close this window?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. So now we would call for a vote to move this motion forward to further edit within the subcommittee, the regulations, and I, Samantha Polakowski, vote in favor of this motion. Joseph Martin.
Joseph Martin, vote in favor.
Karen Karp.
Karen Karp, in favor.
And Kathleen Theobald.
Kathleen Theobald, in favor.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. Now, I know the next item is adjournment, but I do want to kind of just wrap up agenda item 7.0. I want to let both Karen, Sandra, Joe, anybody of you guys know that myself, Marissa, Harry, our DCA's regulatory counsel are available for consultation at any point. Next week is pretty booked for me. I am traveling to go to a National Council State Boards of Nursing annual meeting. And so I will be more unavailable than normal. But after that, I will be back in office at a regular time, and we could set up multiple meetings if you would like to, 1 or 2 meetings a week or something, so that we can work on this. We do have a nurse practice committee scheduled for September and October, and a board meeting for November. And so if during that process, if that's something that we do get some language that would be ready, we could do that. And then we would just notice the committee here with what that language is at the next meeting, and get some feedback on it, knowing that we're still in the drafting process. Because even if it goes through practice committee and board, we would potentially still be in the drafting process. Excuse me. The other option would be if there is a lot of work that has to be done, if it is not in a state that can be moved forward, our next target dates, just so you guys know, would be January practice committee and then February board. Knowing that you guys have now a nurse anesthetist advisory committee scheduled for January, right? So that might be the better path. That gives us a little more time to make sure we have everything ready, have all the documentation that would support it as well. And then we could submit it to your committee on the 16th, follow it with the board committee and our board, and move that along as well. So just various options. Because we are in the drafting page, we don't know how quickly this will occur and how soon that will, but at every point we will have it publicly noticed. It will be put out there and we will share. And then one other thing that I want to make sure that our public is aware of is we have a listserv that we do provide for anybody that wants to sign up for that. And there is a specific regulatory listserv that we do have, and I'm trying desperately to find it. Marissa, do you have it off the top of your head? There is a Marissa, are you there?
It's Macaulay, because Marissa's on the other side of the table. She said it's the same way you sign up for any our listserv, but you just click regulations. It's a button.
Okay. So on our website, and I will go ahead and share my screen because I know that there's a lot of people interested in this on how you would get there. And so give me just 1 second to load. Awesome. Are you guys able to see my screen? Yes? Okay. And so what you're seeing right there, it says join our email list. So right here, it's rn.ca.gov. Please ignore the multiple tabs that are open and above. Go down here and say join our email list. When this page loads, you will be able to enter your email address. And this is for general notifications, which I'm always a fan of. Please sign up for that, as well as regulation updates. Please click on that or all list. You can subscribe. If you get sick of hearing from us, you can absolutely unsubscribe, but I do recommend that you subscribe. We send out updates for every single one of our meetings when minutes are posted, when, sorry, not minutes, when video recordings are posted, when we have cures notices go up there, fraud notices go out if something happens. When COVID was there, we were sending out them all the time. So this is where you would do that. The regulatory updates are anytime we do a regulatory package that changes or alters the Nurse Practice Act. That is an update that goes out there. It lets you know where we're at in the process, what was accepted, what was changed, any comment period, any time that you guys would want to request a specific hearing or anything on a regulatory package going through. And so this is really, really helpful for you guys to have as you're staying informed of the process as it moves through. So I just wanted to share that with you guys and our public so that they can be fully informed of everything each step of the way. And then as I know more, I'm sure it will need to be shared out. And I could foresee that if CDPH is to draft an all facilities letter and that is to go out, that the BRN would include something in that or follow up with something, and then we would share that out to our listserv as well as sharing it on our website. So that stuff would come out and you guys would be able to see that. Any questions before we wrap up agenda item 7 and move on to adjournment? No?
Thank you, Lori. That was very helpful.
Awesome. No problem. Thank you.
Lori, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, well, I guess we'll move on to agenda item 8, which is adjournment. That concludes the Certified Registered Nurse Anesthetist Advisory Committee meeting for August 15th, 2024. The meeting is adjourned at 11:30 a.m.
Fantastic. See you guys in January. And Karen, Sandra, Joe, please reach out, get on my schedule. And Marissa, myself, and our legal counsel will help you through all of the BRN specific stuff that we have to address in these regs.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.